Welcome to the Hall of Echoes of the Grand Library of the city of Zahra. This is where reports arrive of discoveries, expeditions, and events already shaping the world. Some are confirmed, others survive only through witness. I am Idris Nahir, Keeper of Echoes. I mark what is known and I name what is uncertain, because silence is also a choice. These are the matters before Zahra. There has been much commotion throughout the city since we last spoke, and I intend to share with you every detail I know. First, I understand you are all eager to learn of the missing kinfolk in the city. No new information has come forward about most of them, though the intensive investigation into Ramza al-Shakir has brought us some news that is being looked into. The other kinfolk, Demetrius, son of Ravin, Julin, daughter of Kirakau, and Zante Lightstep, are still missing, and there has been no information to lead to their whereabouts. They, by all means, seem to have vanished into thin air. Ramza's case, however, is a little more complicated. Because she is such a noted and esteemed kinfolk among the upper echelons of Zahra, the hunt to find her has moved quickly. Information has come forward in droves, mostly thanks to the latest addition of refugees to our city. Now, our symposium today is going to be about the Juskobee tribe, who I'm sure many of you have had the pleasure of speaking to already. Their arrival in the city at this exact moment seems as if written in the stars. No one predicted it. Not even our circle of 1,000 threads who believe everything is preordained in its own way. But their arrival might be the final missing piece to finding Ramza, and potentially all of the other missing kinfolk. I'll uncover more about that later though, through the journals I'll be reading that belong to the company of the Reaper's Gains. For now, let me tell you a little bit about the Juskobee tribe. They're a forest tribe that lives north of Morvac within the Forest of Thorns. While many other tribes in the area have grown accustomed to working with other cities, the Juskobee tribe tends to keep to themselves. They are fully self-sufficient. They hunt their own food, grow their own crop, make their own clothing and shelter. They have no need to trade with us for our wares because they have everything they need within their community. I have had the grand honor of speaking to members of the Juskobee tribe over the past several days. I would be remiss to not share with you that it seems their way of life was nothing short of utopian. They were not slaves to the glass shards we all covet so intensely, and there is no bureaucratic systems binding them. And crime does not seem to exist. Each tribe member I spoke to held a wistful look in their eye when recounting their home. Even speaking of it now, my heart goes out to them for having to leave. As most tribes that migrate their way to our great city, their lands have been taken over by signs of the old gods. What is so curious about this instance is that they've only just begun to see the second signs. I explained to them that their lands are more than likely safe to live in for generations. Third signs isn't brought about quickly after all. Many of the tribes we see moving into our city every month have maintained their lands through the early stages of the signs of the old gods until they could not any longer. But the tribe spoke of a danger, one that has always been there lurking in the background, but docile. Ever since the second signs took grasp of the lands, that has changed. They call it Vasi'im, which in their language means echo. Learning about this creature has been unnerving to say the least. What makes it all the more unsettling is the fact that our journal entries today are going to uncover more information about it. But I will save that for later. I'll not spoil those details for now. I know what you ravenous lot want to know is why these new tribe folk who have never set foot within our city would have a clue about the disappearance of Ramza al-Shakir. Alarmingly enough, It's not the first time we've heard reports from refugees that missionaries have come to visit their dying lands and request that they stay and die valiantly with their home. My contact within the tribe, Misei, was the one who recognized Ramza doing just that. The two of us were walking through the streets of Zahra as I was giving her a rather expository tour, as I am wont to do, the old rambling man I am. As it happened, a Veiled Chamber member had recently made a poster with a detailed sketch of Ramza that caught Misei's eye immediately. There, she explained to me that she saw Ramza in her home. She was just one of a handful of missionaries all cloaked in grey robes, speaking to the tribe members about the signs of the old gods, and mentioning how dire it is to stay within their lands regardless of what happens. Misei looked me in the eye and said Ramza was asking them to die. Most of their tribe had their own families, kinfolk to care for. None of them wanted to risk their lives in these unstable lands with the Vasi'im roaming around and hunting them. Misei didn't stay long after. She was already on her way out with her own family. Of course, that information was given to different parties investigating, and they have questioned nearly every refugee from the tribe about it. You will see it in the journals I read for you today that certain peoples did not hesitate for a moment before acting on this information. But before we dig into those, I shall give you some current events within our city. For once, they are rather light. Perhaps this is a sign of peace, but I'll not wax poetic about that, as we all know there's always something lurking below the surface in Zahra. For all the Juskobee tribe members in the audience today, there are plenty of resources to help you acclimate to our city. We understand that this is a brand new way of life for you, and we do not want you to be disadvantaged. The Dwarven Labor Union has dispatched its outreach team to help train members in different industries. The Hallowed has also been helping provide food, shelter, and fresh clothing. You can find them near Union Square if you are interested in accepting their aid. The Illuminated Petal, as I'm sure you must have seen by now, have been roaming the streets performing ballads of song and poetry in honor of the missing kinfolk. Many of them have also been collecting donations for the families of Demetrius, Julin, and Zante. If you happen upon one of their performances and have full right to spare, please consider lending a hand, as these families are under enough stress already. Finally, regarding the blockade with Morvac, it hasn't been lifted entirely as of yet. There has been some trade moving through the river, and I've heard reports there is a heavy toll being paid to the Morvacki by ships desperately seeking passage. We hope that soon enough the blockade will end and trade will be back to normal within the city. Without further ado, I shall begin reading the recovered journals of the Company of the Reaper's Gain. From the Journal of Ma'ashala, the Scarred Compass, Expedition Leader of the Reaper's Gain. To be approached by someone as illustrious in Zahra as Vasiim al-Shakir caught me off guard. I did not recognize him at first. He and I don't socialize in similar circles. When he told me his name, I thought it was some kind of a joke. Of course, I'd heard it. He is a very prominent landowner in the city, and one tends to hold an iron grip over his tenants. If I had a fulgurite shard for every time someone drunkenly asked me to take care of him for them, I would not need to work anymore. I only vaguely remembered hearing about his daughter. She went missing while I was busy with other work for the chamber. He sat me down, bought me a pint of ale, and told me that he needed to hire the best. That's why he sought me out personally. Flattery does carry more weight with me than it should, I like to admit. Besides, he isn't wrong. If you want somebody or something found in this city, I'm the man to go to. The only problem is that I prefer to work alone. But with the plan Vasiim beset upon me, That did not seem like an option. He wanted me to lead my own expedition like some bright-eyed adventurer looking to discover the world. I've seen enough of it for myself. The last place I need to be traveling is through Morvac at my age. I had half a mind to turn him down and point him in the direction of another mercenary who might be more keen on cooperation. But then he slid a piece of paper across the table with the bounty for Ramza's safe recovery, plus a handsome bonus for being quick. Should I have her home, tucked back into her silk bed sheets without a hair on her head out of place in a week's time, I would be given 500 fulgurite rings. How could I refuse that? He gave me all of the details and a contact within the Grand Library who sanctions all the expeditions. As the expedition leader, it is my job to try and find a team to come with me. Somehow that task seemed more daunting than journeying through a city that supposedly has an undead flesh army. He and I visited Warden Pania in the library, and I spoke with her. I might not have told her the truth. The less kinfolk aware of Ramza's last known whereabouts, the better. If I have to share that bounty with anyone, that's more work I have to take on to recover that loss. I wouldn't have that, so I told Penny that we would be going in search of relics. She was somewhat skeptical because it was still only a region in the second signs of the old gods, and relics were usually only retrieved during the third signs. She mentioned some kinfolk wouldn't take kindly to this. They might already view it as thieving. No matter how hard she tried to sway me from considering a different target for my expedition, I just told her to assign me kinfolk. That's how I ended up with the group I have now. Some Royal Society scholar hoping to learn about these strange creatures the Juskobee tribe told them about. A river warden storemaster who claims to have maps to safe houses along the river we can rest at. And a hammer-bound shield captain, tagging along for his love of adventure, I suppose. He does not say much. This is a task I feel much better suited to take on alone. I just hope these three don't end up slowing me down along the way. From the Journal of Samira, Ledger of Lives of the Adder's Hand. I've heard plenty of stories about Ma'ashala, the Scarred Compass, the mercenary throughout the city. I suppose I expected someone a bit more cunning based on the renown he's accumulated. Lying to him and telling him that I was just some eager Royal Society student was easy enough. I suppose he really would have no reason to doubt that. Pania set me on this expedition because she does not trust his motives. The Juskobee tribe is not up for grabs right now. Any artifacts they have in their lands are still items that they might plan to take with them when they leave. I don't know why the Veiled Chamber would fund an expedition into a land of the second signs, but that's what I intend to find out. I'm not just going to let this Scarred Compass storm into these lands and take what he wants because of his reputation. I'm sure the tribe, who have hardly ever seen anyone outside their own kinfolk, are going to find him horrifying to look at. Not to sound judgmental, but the man is covered almost head to toe in scars, and I'm sure each one of them comes along with a vibrant story of how he cut someone's head off for giving it to him. He is not someone whose bad side you really want to be on. Yet here I am, destined to get on it myself. There has to be something there the Veiled Chamber is after. I don't know how they do it, but they always have information before everyone else does. It wouldn't surprise me if they had intimidated and threatened members of the tribe to tell them about any valuable relics they have to obtain now. That would be setting a very dangerous precedent for every tribe in the area, and I really hope they wouldn't stoop so low. But then again, this is the chamber we are talking about. I have to figure out what is going on. That's priority number one. Priority number 2 is actually figuring out what's going on with these creatures. From what I understand, they lived almost harmoniously with the creature for generations. Now, it's hunting them. Because the tribe never really had to deal with this before, they don't fully understand how it operates. The refugees in the city now don't want to stick around and find out either. The moment their kinfolk started going missing, they knew they had to leave. I can't blame them for that, and I certainly don't blame them for ignoring those buffoons who keep going to these lands and pleading with kinfolk to stay. If I can find out anything about them while I am there, that's my 3rd priority. Whoever they are, they need to be stopped. It's only a matter of time before one of these tribes actually listens to them, and a completely avoidable travesty unfolds in our world. This is not my first expedition, yet might be the most hostile. I have a bad feeling about what's going to happen. We've been traveling all day, and we finally camped at an underground hideaway along the river that Wadia Collector of Customs showed us. A quiet has settled over all of us. If we are not talking about the journey, we are not talking at all. That will make it hard to figure out what everyone's motives are here, but I'm not giving up on that just yet. I'll just keep pestering this scarred compass until he eventually gives in, I suppose. Let's hope I have some luck there. From the Journal of Shield Captain Ralph the Necessary Knife. With each step we take towards Morvac, I wonder if my coming on this expedition was a mistake. The moment I saw Ma'ashala, the scarred compass, I should have stepped down. I might have lied about my deeply rooted connection to the Hammerbound when I signed on. Well, it's not 100% false. Once upon a time, I was a devoted member. But then I found that freelancing was much more lucrative. Having 2 mercenaries hiding their identities from everyone else in the expedition does not bode well. I'm surprised nobody else has called Ma'ashala the Scarred Compass out for lying already. Are we really made to believe he's just a member of the Veiled Chamber? I've seen Veiled Chamber members in my day. Not a single one of them looks like they've ever done a hard day's work in their life. Yet here is a man who has more scar tissue than skin at this point, and I'm going to believe he's fighting for the aristocracy to rule over the kinfolk of the city? But I suppose he has his secrets. I know I have mine. The Iron Covenant overheard some kinfolk talking in the spice market about the new tribe coming to town. About they had information about the missing daughter. Rodoteos knew we needed to jump on the news. I figured it was only a matter of time before every other mercenary in the city knew the Juskobee tribe had information about Ramza, and there would be a mad dash through the desert to find her. I just so happened to be the lucky one for my group selected. Of course, I thought I'd be the only mercenary hidden among our ranks. I'll have to figure out what to do about the scarred compass, because there is no way he is going to split a bounty like this with me. I suppose that's if we make it there at all. Traveling through the desert has been more arduous than I could have imagined. Obviously, I knew it would be hot and dry, and we did our best to prepare for that, but the air itself is suffocating. It does not help that a storm was rolling in. I've only heard about the storms in the Barkia Desert. Even though they sound incredible in their own right, I had never hoped to see one with my own eyes. But truthfully, watching the Barakin moving through the lightning the way they did was breathtaking. This storm came in faster than we could prepare for. Our river warden, Wadia, collector of customs, helped guide us to a safe point along the river as thunder boomed overhead, and the skies went from crystal clear to a gray so thick and heavy it felt like there might never be light in the world again. For a while, I did not think we would make it. Lightning cracked from the clouds and struck veins in the desert that were already pulsing as if they waited for the energy from the lightning. I had half a mind to try to harvest some fulgurite myself. I mean, how often would a man like me have a chance to grasp that much raw power without any consequence? But then we saw the Barakin storm dancers. Then they ran through the storm, weaving and dancing around lightning bolts that struck right out in front of them. They screamed and howled, not from fear but excitement. The others all went underground to the safety of the room as I stood above and watched. They looked so free, dancing and harvesting the shards. It almost inspired me to give up everything I've ever known just to join them, because I don't think I could ever know a freedom like that. But just as fast as the storm rolled in, the sky cleared again and it disappeared. We're going to spend the evening here and camp to get an early start in the morning. We are going to have to go through Morvac. We've heard altering accounts of what it's like, so there's a chance that we might get through unscathed. And there also is a chance that one or all of us is killed. Let's not hope it's the latter. From the Journal of Storemaster Wadia, Collector of Customs. I don't know what these fools would do without me. Standing around and ogling at a glyph storm like that is wishing for death to be brought upon them. Seeing all of them so helpless in the middle of it made me wish I could return to Zahra and find a new group to move with. I practically had to drag the hammerbound away from the storm because he was so enamored with it. And now I'm left wondering how they've all survived as long as they have. It can't have been easy for them. The further we traveled toward Morvac, though, the more at ease I was about the barricade throughout the day. That's the sole reason I'm going anyway. The Dar al-Nar have many safe houses and storerooms along the river, and they wanted to make sure we are in good shape. We have our own groups of travelers who go to check on them usually, but with the increased risk of attacks at the hands of Morvac, we thought tagging along for an expedition might spare us some of our members should things go awry. But any comfort I found as we approached Morvac vanished the moment we approached the city. I was hopeful the rumors about the undead army were nothing more than hyperbole. Oh, how I hate being wrong. The blockade was visible from a distance. They have the entire river covered in rubble with massive guards stationed at either side of it. Beyond the blockade, I could see dozens of river boats with countless merchants and travelers aboard waiting for an opportunity to return home. Some of them were hiding in their boats, trying not to make their presence noticeable in any way, while others were trying to pick up anything they could and venture through the desert itself. The Morvac guards just stood by laughing. They spotted us as we approached, even though I think the group of us hoped we might be able to walk by without trouble. Even though I felt fear twisting in my gut that I never imagined I would. We needed to cross the Naj al-Majd. That meant we needed Morvac to approve of our feet moving through their city. So we paid a toll. Ma'ashallah looked at me as the storemaster and the one carrying all of our goods to shell out the fulgurite. The Morvacki kept their eyes on me the entire time, and I was worried they would grab one of their broadswords and attack, taking all of my fulgurite and belongings in an instant. I could see them from the corner of my eyes talking among themselves as I counted out the shards. They spoke in their own tongue, and if I would have had any foresight into this situation, I might have used grammaturgy to understand. Perhaps I can try that on the way back. But regardless, it left me with a sour taste in my mouth. We walked away from the Morvacki, departing the safe comfort of the Naj al-Rumuz once and for all. We were led toward the walled city by one of the guards, and before they opened the door, blindfolds were put over our eyes. None of us really had a choice but to comply, which I could sense frustrated the likes of Ma'ashala, the scarred compass. All of us knew that our lives were in Morvacki hands. What motive did they truly have for keeping us alive? Every step we took blindfolded through the city was like walking through a nightmare. We could hear sounds of life nearby, talking, the shuffling of feet, even laughing. If I did not know any better, I would have thought I was walking through Zahra. Once we were on the other side of the city, the doors slammed shut and we were pushed forward. The blindfolds ripped from our eyes and left to make the rest of the journey. We all shared a brief moment of relief from the fact that we all made it through Morvac alive. I think I even saw the scarred compass smile for a brief moment. When we were far enough away from the walls, I shared with everyone what I thought about what we just encountered. Personally, I don't think we should go back. There are ways around Morvac, and I did not like the way they were looking at us. But Ma'ashallah, the tyrannical leader he is, put a stop to that line of conversation quickly. He said, if all goes according to plan, we'll need to get back to Zahra as quickly as possible. We take the route we know. From the journal of expedition leader Ma'ashala, the scarred compass. Crossing through Morvac was the part of the journey I was most nervous about. But at the same time, if someone like Ramza could manage it, then I suppose it was not that difficult. The scrublands were much easier to traverse than the desert. They're more temperate. There is actually something to look at to make the time pass faster as we push forward. We are camped now, and I know that in a day's time we will be in the forest and we can look for Ramza there. But today's travels have been strange. I've made it quite apparent during this journey so far that senseless small talk is not desirable. I haven't had much to say about it. Occasionally, I'll hear Wadia and Samira Ledger of Lives talking to each other. But the moment I look over my shoulder, they pipe down. I don't know what happened exactly. I could have sworn I heard the river warden talking, but she swears that she wasn't. There's a part of me that feels like she is just trying to mess with my head. I don't know why she would do that, because if anything were to come out and attack our group, I would be the first line of defense. Why would you mess with the person who could potentially save your life? We were just walking through the scrublands, approaching the forest in the distance. Everyone had been quiet up until that point. The only noise was the rhythmic sound of our boots crunching on the dry grass and dirt. Then I heard a laugh. It was light and girlish, so my eyes immediately darted to Wadia, collector of customs, and Samira, ledger of lives. I could not even begin imagining the necessary knife emitting a noise so delicate. But as I looked back, neither of them were smiling. There was no hint of conversation lingering between the two of them, and it garnered a dirty look from them both. I did not really think much of it. Maybe the sound could have only been in my imagination. Doubtful that may be. But we push on. We continued to move closer to the forest, and I heard it again, whipping my head around to see the same thing. I asked them to stop whatever they were doing, and neither of them knew what I was talking about. I told them to stop laughing, and both of them swore that neither of them did. And the necessary knife confirmed that. I would admit at that point I was annoyed. The three of them, it seemed, had colluded on some kind of ploy to get to me. I wasn't going to let it happen. Then I heard Wadia speaking. That in itself would not be very unusual. She has been prone to chiming in throughout the journey, letting us know about the safe points along the river, complaining about the things she carried, and occasionally asking what might await us at our destination. But this time, it wasn't anything like that. She said, "I think we're lost." It was completely unprompted. We'd been moving in the same direction all day, and I was confident I knew how to read a map. We were on track by all accounts. Her doubt offended me. I turned around and replied to her comment, telling her that I am the leader and I am the one in control of the map. I told her if she does not like it, she can leave. Everyone in the group looked at me as if I had grown a second head. They did not understand why I was snapping at Wadia the way that I was. I tried to explain that she was being condescending and undermining what I knew about our journey, and still she denied what she said. The argument came to an end and we continued on unburdened by it for a while. Then I heard her voice once again, like it was right in my ear, saying, "You are a fool." I whipped my head around and told her to stop. And it only brought about the same argument we had twice now. She was trying to get to me, that I knew. I just did not understand why. We'd already journeyed so far. Why would she decide to be nothing more than a nuisance to me? We made camp for the night and all of us gathered around the fire. The air was thick with tension, and I think the others expected me to apologize for my reaction. But I will do no such thing. I know what I heard. She was taunting me, trying to get under my skin, and I let it work. I am not going to give her what she wants. From the Journal of Samira, Ledger of Lives of the Adder's Hand. Camp was uncomfortable for the first few hours. All of us were relieved to be in the forest and under the shade of all the trees above us, but I could not help noticing the quiet around us. Now I have grown up in a city in the heat of the desert. I might not be the most skilled when it comes to identifying bird songs and types of trees, but I do know that nature is never quiet. Even the desert has its own songs. You could hear a single leaf falling from the trees with how still it was. I don't think any of us wanted to break that silence. It felt like in doing so you were inviting something. I can't quite explain just the dread that I felt sitting by the fire, but I did not want to leave it. The darkness was all around us, and I did not want to think about what might be lurking. In spite of all that, we are only kinfolk. By the time a few hours passed, my bladder was so full that I felt like I might burst. I simply had to leave. I told everyone what I was doing, and the scarred compass was the one who suggested that I go with someone, so Collector of Customs was the obvious choice. She had to make water too, so we went out together, separated momentarily by the trees as we did our business. I finished first and waited anxiously for her. I called out, just to let her know that I was done and waiting a few feet away, my back turned so she had a little privacy. Instead of responding to let me know that she heard, I heard the sounds of twigs snapping in a hurry like someone was running. There was a small thud and a grunt. I looked over my shoulder, but I did not see anything through the darkness. I called out for Wadia and asked if she was okay. A brief moment passed, and she told me that she was. She tripped over a tree root and fell to the ground. I told her I would come around and help her up, but then she told me not to. She did not want me to see her like that, whatever that meant. We weren't far from camp, so I told her I would go back and convince the scarred compass to let me use one of our torches. He'd been very stingy about them and did not want us to waste one just to relieve our bladders 20 feet from camp. We've learned by now not to argue with him. When I told her I would be right back, she did not respond. and when I got to the campsite, I felt a wave of discomfort overtake me. I felt like for a moment I was paralyzed, like I couldn't do anything. Ma'ashalah saw me standing there, rigid with my fist balled at my side, and he asked me where the other one was. I didn't understand. I looked around the campsite and found myself counting heads. There was myself as one. Ma'ashalah, the scarred compass as 2. The necessary knife as 3, and a 4th person, a pale woman with long stringy hair and vacant eyes. I searched my mind for her name and came up with nothing. But even though I could not quite place her, I knew she had to be there. We were a party of 4, and there were 4 of us. I counted again, and everything felt right. For a moment. The other one? I asked him. I did not know why I asked that, but at the time I could not think about Wadia. He looked at me with his eyebrows furrowed for a moment, like he could not understand what I was asking him. Then he looked around the camp, and I saw confusion set in for him too. He counted heads and looked between me and Ralph and the woman. Ralph was confused about it until he did the same, realizing what our problem was. All of us knew that something wasn't right. 4 of us were there, yet one of us was still missing, right? Ma'ashalah had just asked about the other one. I could feel Wadia, collector of customs, name scratching at my brain like it was begging to be spoken aloud, to break whatever spell I'd seemed to come under. I fear I cannot explain this sensation to give it justice. Deep within myself, I knew what was wrong. I knew Wadia, collector of customs, was not with us, but I felt as if I was making that up, like she was nothing more than a delusion for the previous days of our journey. She simply had to be because we counted 4 kinfolk in our party, and there were 4 kinfolk sat around the fire. The longer we counted, it felt like I could not recognize who was who. I knew that I'd been traveling with them, that we might not have been friends, but I've come to know them in our own ways over the past few days. Yet all I could see were strangers, like I was seeing the entire group for the very first time. After several excruciatingly long moments of sheer confusion, Ma'ashalah, the scarred compass, spoke up and told us all that we were overreacting about something, and that everything appeared to be normal. So I sat down. I stared at the fire, trying to think about what just happened, because I knew it wasn't right. I thought about the things the Juskobee tribe mentioned in the library, about some kind of a creature that was hunting them. I wondered if that could be the case, but it did not feel like what I imagined. We weren't being chased. There was no animalistic shrieking. Nothing but silence. It felt like a vice gripping my throat as the silence settled back in around us. It didn't take long at all before I remembered what I came back for. I jumped to my feet, saying Wadia's name and grabbing a torch. The others followed behind me, also seemingly realizing that Wadia was missing. I ran back with the torch glowing in the forest toward the spot where I left her. It was completely empty. There was not a trace of her behind that tree. I think all of us realized at that moment that she was gone. Panic set in and I collapsed to the ground. I did not even realize it, but Ma'ashalah had practically dragged me to the campsite. Ralph, the necessary knife, and I both said we wanted to go back. I did not know exactly what was going on, but I knew there was some kind of creature in these woods that was hunting kinfolk. Ralph, the necessary knife, was in full agreement that this was not worth our lives. The scarred compass wasn't hearing it. He told us that we were too close to turn back now. Now we know what we are up against. He said it would be easier to prepare for in the future. I had a sick feeling in my stomach that he was wrong. From the Journal of Shield Captain Ralph the Necessary Knife. I heard a branch snapping in the woods. That's what woke me up. The sun hadn't risen and the eerie darkness was still settled in the treetops. After the branches, I heard quiet voices counting from 1 to 4 over and over again. I shook the scarred compass and Samira Ledger of Lives awake. Both of them jumped up, wondering what was going on. We looked around until eventually we spotted a group of kinfolk walking through the forest. A family, a young couple with 2 children each fast asleep in their arms. The entire time the woman was muttering numbers under her breath. They stopped walking when they saw us and the man held up his hand cautiously. Samira Ledger of Lives was the one to beckon them over. It only took her a moment to use grammaturgy to allow us to speak freely with one another. You should have seen the look on Ma'ashala's face when Samira offered them some food from our stores, citing they looked starved and exhausted. The couple was thankful and they sat down cautiously, waking up their children so they could eat some food as well. It was kind of sweet watching them rub their eyes and look around so innocently. The father, Kuna, spoke to us while his wife, Tiwa, tended to the children. Samira did most of the talking as she inquired about where they are from, assuming it was the Juskobee tribe. As it turned out, that was the truth. This got the scarred compass's attention and he stood up, asking questions about what to expect when we got there. He made his motive very clear when he asked about kinfolk coming to tell them to stay. I already assumed he'd be looking into Ramza, but now I know. When they talk about it, he described her too. I think at that moment Samira Ledger of Lives realized what he was really after. I could almost feel the disappointment in him as they said the group left the area. The Ledger of Lives changed the subject when they didn't have much new information to offer about Ramza. Instead, she turned to the creature in the area that had been hunting them. The family told us a story that sent a chill through me. Their tribe has been living in the Forest of Thorns for generations. The Vasi'im, they call it, have been amongst them for as long as their kinfolk could remember. The creatures are rarely seen, but they make their presence known. They speak, mimicking the voices of kinfolk around them and causing general unrest. Hundreds of years ago, they would do that with the express purpose of separating one from another. Once kinfolk were separated from the tribe, they would be attacked, never to be seen or heard from again. Kuna told us they all have theories about what happens after the kinfolk disappear. Some think they're just eaten, while others think they're turned into the nightmarish creatures themselves. He doesn't seem to have a preference in theories, but he does know he's never wanted to find out. After a while, their tribe had grown tired of being hunted by these creatures, so they started giving them offerings. Bundles of herbs, resins. Whenever they would prepare a meal, they'd leave a dish out for the Vasi'im. For a long time, it was more than enough to keep them at bay. But when the second signs of the old gods began plaguing their lands, the offerings weren't enough. Kinfolk started disappearing again. Not just the kinfolk traveling through the Forest of Thorns, but entire families would venture out to hunt or forage would never return. It seems like children would be pulled right from their blankets at night. All at once, they realized the problem at their hands. A lot of kinfolk decided it was not worth staying. Yet it was their land, and they understood the second signs wasn't detrimental yet. That there still might be time for them to recover whatever they can. But they did not deem any of that worth their lives. The entire time they told this story, all of us sat raptly listening to them. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was going to leave. Whether or not the scarred compass and Samira Ledger of Lives wanted to come too, that was up to them. But I knew that at first light, I was getting out of this forest. The conversation came to a lull, and I felt a weight settling in around us as Tiwa looked around the group and wrinkled her eyebrows. She asked how many kinfolk were in our group. There wasn't a moment of hesitation before Ma'ashala answered with 3. Slowly, Tiwa counted all of us. The 4 of them came to our camp, so I knew there should have been 7 of us total. But as the numbers rose, she moved from 7 to 8, pointing at the pale woman with the dark eyes and the long, unkempt hair. There was some debating between us. They wanted to know how sure we were that we were only 3 of us, and we told them we were positive. I could only barely think about Wadia, collector of customs, and what happened. For a while, she did not exist at all. I could sense the panic wafting off from the family as they gathered their children in their arms. I started counting from 1 to 4 all over again and got ready to leave. Before they left, Kunal reached for something in his pack. He dropped a bundle of herbs on the ground in front of us. He said he wasn't sure if it would be of any help, but try to use it if you need to. He warned us to leave. He said whatever was waiting for us in the tribal lands was not worth it. The moment they were gone, I started counting. I counted from 1 to 4, over and over again, counting myself and the 3 others sitting around the fire. Something was off. I knew that. We were all on edge. Not a single one of us could even fathom the idea of closing our eyes. We debated what to do for hours. In the end, Ma'ashala, the scarred compass, agreed that there was no point going forward anymore. What he was looking for was not here. From the Journal of Expedition Leader Ma'ashala, the Scarred Compass. Leaving the forest empty-handed was the worst-case scenario. Well, considering what that family told us, maybe it wasn't the worst case, but it was disappointing nonetheless. I would have to go back to the Veiled Chamber and tell them that I failed in this mission. We did not make it there in time to find Ramza and bring her home. Now the lead that we had with this tribe having seen her was going to go cold, and I wouldn't have that Fulgurite bonus. The others were on edge during the walk out of the forest. I let them do their counting behind me, not bothering to turn around and tell them to stop, despite how grating the constant noise was. What made it even worse was they were not counting in unison. Each of them were on their own speed, making numbers out of order for me. They counted to 4, over and over again. I grabbed the bundle of rosemary the family gave us before leaving. I didn't know if it would do us any good in regard to whatever this Vasi'im creature was, especially as they said offerings stopped working. As we reached the edge of the Forest of Thorns in the morning, we walked on without looking back. I dropped the rosemary on the ground just as a precaution. I'm not usually superstitious, but I figure it could not hurt. As we were walking, I realized the counting had changed. It was no longer 1 through 4, but both Ralph the Necessary Knife and Samira Ledger of Lives stopped at 3. I stopped walking and turned around, looking over my shoulder at the tree line of the forest in the distance. Standing right where I dropped the rosemary was a pale woman with long, thin hair and eyes so dark they sent a chill through me. Looking at her in the broad daylight, I could see that there was something off about her, like she was wearing the skin of a human, but just wasn't on right. She watched the 3 of us, raising a hand as if to wave. I could see every bone in her arm as she raised it, like she was a skeleton with a thin layer of paper skin over top. Samira Ledger of Lives and I Both stared at the creature in awe for a moment, while Ralph, the necessary knife, turned and ran. Both of us realized we should probably follow him and continue counting our numbers until we ran through the edges of the scrublands. I found myself thinking about Wadia, collector of customs, as we were approaching Morvac. She had felt uncomfortable with how the Morvacki were acting, and I had dismissed it. But unfortunately, I did not know any other routes. Morvac would be the only way through, and the problem we were facing was the fact they were coming back completely empty-handed. We paid a hefty toll on the way in, and we had planned on paying the toll the way back with any valuables recovered. Without those, we were definitely vulnerable. We stopped a bit outside of the city, and I considered we might as well try to plan an alternate route. But as we camped and looked at our map, a group of Morvacki soldiers approached us and demanded payment to move through the city. When we told them we did not have any, smiles grew on their decayed lips that made my stomach curdle. They lowered their voices. They told us that if we could not pay, they would take something else. One of them drew a broadsword, and I did not spare a moment reaching for mine. Ralph, the necessary knife, was on his feet in an instant too, ready to fight. I might have assumed Samira, Ledger of Lives, would be weaker if it came to fighting, but I was pleasantly surprised that I was wrong. While she might not have known how to wield a blade as effectively as myself and the necessary knife, she was very skilled with grammaturgy. A fight broke out. The Morvacki were huge and moved slowly. Their weapons were designed to be extremely effective when they hit, but the odds of hitting at the pace they swung were much lower. I shouted out at the group, keeping my eyes trained on every weapon to track where they were aiming. I directed the Ledger of Lives and the necessary knife as needed, making sure they stepped back and dodge appropriately. Samira, Ledger of Lives, used grammaturgy to create a vortex in the sand that started pulling them toward it. I managed to push one of them out of the way, ignoring the disgusting squelching noise made when my hands came in contact with their flesh. It fell backwards and collapsed into the vortex, dropping its broadsword on the ground. The other was smart enough to move away from the vortex in the sand long enough for the arcana to dissipate and the earth to return to normal. But nevertheless, with the three of us targeting our full strength on him, he went down in no time. By the time I was pulling my blade from its chest and wiping the sickly black sludge that was its blood with a rag, I felt triumphant. I may not have actually met my goal on this journey, but how many kinfolk can really say they have slain Morvacki soldiers? I'm sure this story would be enough to earn a few free drinks at any tavern. From the Journal of Samira, Ledger of Lives of the Adder's Hand. After we killed the two Morvacki, we knew there was no way we could move through the city. We did not have much time to plan, so we ran into the mountains and it took days to travel through. We did not have the food stores we needed to survive. Honestly, I thought we might die in the mountains. But as we were camping through the night, I tried my best to remember a survival glyph I'd read about in a book years before. I tested it and eventually created a connection with the earth that guided us to some wild vegetables nearby. We harvested those and we ate ravenously. It was enough to carry us through the mountains and back to the river. We were too far away from Morvac to see what was going on with the blockade, but along the way we saw riverboats making their journey toward the city. One of them actually offered to let the three of us ride, which saved us a day's journey. Truthfully, I don't think I'd ever been so glad to sit down. Looking back at everything we went through from the safety of my home in Zahra, I know that we encountered the Vasi'ims. The woman that all three of us remember seeing had to have been one of them. There was no true account as to who she was, even though all three of us felt this strange sense of familiarity and foreboding regarding her. And whenever she was around, it seemed like Wadia, collector of customs, did not exist. Thinking about that now saddens me. It might not have been the most light-hearted of expeditions, but there were times when I thought I might have found a new friend with Wadia. Telling the rest of the Dar al-Nar what we believe happened to her was not an easy thing to do. But in the end, I think it was the right thing. Ma'ashallah, the scarred compass, definitely had his own motives, and that was to find Ramza al-Shakir. I suppose it's less malicious than I thought it would be, considering he was championed by the Veiled Chamber. We're all safe now, and the Dar al-Nar are going to be holding a memorial for Wadia, collector of customs, and I plan on attending. The one thing I know for certain after all of this is that I take pity on any expedition that is sent to those lands. I can only hope that these journals end up in the right hands and what happened to our party is documented. And there you have it. What a peculiar story. These creatures, the Vasi'im, are unlike anything I've heard of. And to think the Juskobee have been living in peace with them for so long. We hear stories all the time of lands and the second signs of the old gods changing animal behavior. But this is unlike any of those. These creatures are of extreme interest to many of the kinfolk in the city. Whatever strange arcana they possess has the ability to alter the minds of those who encounter them. If there's one thing I can assure you, it's that many are hoping to get their hands on one of these creatures to study them. Knowing where they come from, the exact range of their abilities, and what they want from us is going to be detrimental in attempting to recover anything we can of the Juskobee tribe. But more importantly now, I leave you all with a question. This is one that I have been pondering myself a lot lately, as this has continued to be an issue. Why would anyone want kinfolk to stay in lands like these? Certainly with the panicked account of the family in the Forest of Thorns, they understand how dangerous this area is. More so than any newcomer. But nevertheless, there is a group of kinfolk who are traveling to these already devastated lands and trying to encourage kinfolk to willingly die. What motives could possess someone to do that? And what does this have to do with the missing kinfolk in our city? Once again, if you have any information about the missing kinfolk, please do come forward. As you can see from today's symposium, all information is taken seriously. As much as we want them home safe, I believe there is something very serious we need to speak with them about. This account is now entered into the record of the Hall of Echoes. Some of what you have heard tonight is confirmed. Some remains disputed. All of it has been preserved because silence too alters the future. Yet what reaches the Hall of Echoes is only part of this story. Beyond these public accounts, private conversations continue among those who keep watch over Zahra's future. Those who wish to step beyond the gallery may join these conversations through the library's public ledger at patreon.com/echoes of Aporia. Choose your place among Zahra's many peoples. Hear what the public is not meant to hear. Take part in the conversations that shape which stories endure and which are forgotten. Notes from these symposiums and information about our world can be found in the realms of Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. And if this account proves worth remembering, carry it with you. Share it with others. Repeat it faithfully where knowledge is needed. The hall exists so that truth may travel further than silence. I am Idris Nahir, Keeper of Echoes for the Library of Zahra.
No return, no great stay, no new homes where third sides play, no great heroes, no last stand, leave choose to know. The world warns off before it screams. It eats the bold who miss the seams. Those who listen, live and tell songs of places that fell to hell.